Welcome to the Death Row and Executions channel. I'm Paco Rivera. You can also follow me on Facebook for updates and more Death Row news. There will be a link to my Facebook in the description below. Also, check out my other channel here on YouTube called The Maximum Sentence, where I cover recent crimes and convictions and the maximum penalty handed down. There will be a link for that as well. 52-year-old Demetrius Frazier is scheduled to be executed in the state of Alabama on February 6. Frazier was 19 years old, 33 years ago, when he committed the crime that got him sentenced to death for murder that he committed in the year 1991 in Alabama. What makes this case a bit strange is that Demetrius Frazier was in the state of Michigan the following year, in 1992, and while there he was arrested for armed robbery, indecently assaulting a young girl. Remember that YouTube doesn't want me using the R word in my videos. Felony firearms possession and felony murder in Michigan. On March 8th of that year, 1992, Frazier either lured or forced a 14-year-old girl named Crystal Kendrick into an abandoned building in Detroit. Crystal Kendrick was a frequent runaway and had actually been gone from her home since October of the year before, either living on the streets or sleeping on someone's couch or possibly even living in the abandoned building where she was attacked by Frazier. According to reports, once inside the abandoned building, he attempted to force himself upon Crystal, but she refused and fought off his advances. So he shot her. Frazier was later convicted and sentenced to life in prison in Michigan for that crime. The state of Michigan has never had the death penalty after officially becoming a state in the year 1837. So the most Frazier can be sentenced to there is a life sentence, and a life sentence in Michigan probably means he will get to walk the streets again someday. Now, it's not clear what compelled him to confess. Maybe a life sentence with the possibility of parole wasn't good enough for him, and he decided to confess to another murder that happened in a state that does have the death penalty. Alabama, a state that will likely sentence him to death. Or maybe he just had a guilty conscience. I don't know. But after he was arrested for the crimes that he committed in Michigan in March of 1992, he was interrogated. And during the interrogation, he told detectives that 4 months earlier, he killed a woman in Birmingham, Alabama. So detectives in Michigan contacted detectives in Alabama, and Alabama detectives flew to Michigan to question Frazier. Frazier stated that during the early morning hours of November 26, 1991, he saw a light on the ground floor of an apartment building at the Fountain Heights apartment complex in Birmingham. We would later learn that a 40-year-old woman named Pauline Brown lived in that apartment. Pauline was also the mother of 2 daughters, but they weren't home at the time. Frazier removed a screen from a window and went into the apartment through that window. He went into a bedroom and found a few dollars. He said it was about $5 or $10. And he could hear a television on in another bedroom. So he went to that bedroom and found Pauline Brown asleep in her bed. Frazier said that he pointed a pistol at her and woke her up. He asked for more money, and she gave him $80 from her purse. He then forced her to remove her clothing and then proceeded to indecently assault her. Frazier would say that during the entire time that he was assaulting her, Pauline Brown kept begging for her life by repeatedly saying, "Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me." And that he got so fed up with her begging that he put the gun to her head and fired a shot. Frazier stated that he got worried someone may have heard the gunshot, so he quickly left the apartment and ran across the street to conceal himself for a while. When he was satisfied that no one heard anything, he returned to the apartment and continued searching for anything that he can take. He stated that he also ate 2 bananas in the kitchen and then left again, later disposing of the gun in a ditch. Pauline would leave for work early each morning and stop to pick up a friend who was also a co-worker. When Pauline failed to pick up her friend and did not show up for work, several co-workers became concerned and went to her apartment about 8:30 in the morning, and with the help of a maintenance man to gain entry, Pauline was found dead. Pauline lived with 2 grown daughters, but one had stayed overnight at her grandmother's home and the other had stayed with friends that night. At some point, Demetrius Frazier made his way back to Michigan, where he was born and lived all his life. And 4 months later, he killed again when he murdered a young Crystal Kendrick in an abandoned building, and he was arrested. His trial for the Michigan murder took place that same year, and he was extradited to Alabama a few years later in 1996 to go on trial for the murder of Pauline Brown, where he was found guilty and sentenced to death. At some point, he was transferred back to Michigan to begin serving his life sentence there. If Demetrius Frazier, for some weird reason, wanted to be moved from a general population of prisoners in Michigan to be on death row in Alabama, he would have to wait. Michigan held him for 18 years until the year 2011, when he was then transferred to a death row unit at the Holman Correctional Facility in Alabama. Unfortunately, the only picture of the murder victim, Pauline Brown, that I have comes from an old newspaper article, and it is quite grainy. I would like to thank a Facebook follower, Helen Goswick, for her help in getting me this photo. Actually, Helen has been amazing in keeping me updated on death row and execution matters over the past couple years. And the best details I could find about Pauline Brown comes from the prosecutor's opening arguments during Demetrius Frazier's trial in Alabama in 1996. Here are some of the remarks that the prosecutor told the jury. The remarks might not be in the same order that he spoke them. Pauline Brown was killed 2 days before Thanksgiving in 1991. Pauline was the daughter of Augusta Starks. She had worked as a cook for Bama Foods for 20 years, and she had 2 daughters. She came from a good family, whose mother, Augusta, had worked for over 30 years in the Birmingham Housing Authority. And Curtis, her brother, has worked for the American Cast Iron Pipe Company for 25 years. Good, decent, honest people. In November of 1991, the family was planning their Thanksgiving. Pauline was 40 years old and in the prime of her life. She had raised her 2 daughters. 6 weeks ago, remember that this was 1996 when the prosecutor addressed the jury. 6 weeks ago, one of those daughters, Phyllis, had her baby. Pauline would have been a grandmother for the first time. And that grandbaby will never see the grandmother because Demetrius Frazier got tired of listening to Pauline beg. Please remember to hit the subscribe button for more death row and upcoming execution stories so that you're alerted when the next one comes out. You can also follow me on Facebook for updates. There will be a link for my Facebook in the description below. My name is Paco Rivera. Take care and